My first best practice is I look at my life as Team Jeanie. Who's on Team Jeanie? What is it I'm trying to receive? What is it I'm trying to provide? And then I figure out who are those players on my team that I need to add more fuel and energy to, or I need to learn from. And that mindset is where I always begin.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeanie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Jeanie. Thank you so much for being here with me at the Warriors at Work show. All right, you're about to hear something a little different. So I often ask myself really, really big questions at just different intervals of time during the year. And I don't know if it's an age thing. Maybe it's because of the tough 2022 that myself, my husband, and my family went through. Or maybe it's just a sign of maturity and that it's time to reflect and reconnect with an inner voice, but yet talk it through out loud with somebody else. And so I started wondering, all right, who's the somebody else? I want somebody who doesn't look like me, sound like me, has a different experience, and is also on a different path. So I thought about who in my network fits that bill, and nobody is better than Elisa Padilla. And so the conversations you're about to hear, there are three. One is, who am I? So we talk about who we both are, where we come from, why this work. And then the second conversation is, how do we show up in the world? What are the things that matter? And then the third is something that's really near and dear to both of our hearts into how we are living our lives. And that is through community, networking. How do you blend the two? And so the conversations you're about to hear, we walk you through various paths. And here's what I can promise you. These conversations are unfiltered. We talk about big things in our lives, personal things in our lives. We share our big questions. We share our lessons. And then we talk about what are the things that we're still struggling with as we're moving on in our lives and what we all have in common. And a lot of the commonalities I didn't quite expect. And my guess is, as you're sitting here and you're listening to these, you're going to see you also have a lot in common to a lot of the things that we're talking about. And so Elisa Padilla is such a gift to me, and I feel so incredibly blessed and privileged to bring to you these conversations. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing as you're listening to these, please know you are not alone. We see you. We hear you. We are all here doing this together. Enjoy. Elisa, we're back. We are back with a vengeance. I am dying to ask you this question. So I love all the activity that you put, or it's not even activity. It's inspiration you put out on LinkedIn. And you're so active. You come up with the most superb messages just when the world needs it. So tell me what your anchor word was this week. You gave a really cool list. What was your word?
Oh my goodness. For this week, for me, was change. It was about change. It was about taking inventory of myself and saying, what is it that I am going to change this week? So that is what I have been focused on. What's your anchor word?
Well, I actually have more of like a theme for the year. So each week I play on it, right? So I started the year with the word, like, I want to be more playful. I want to have more fun. Last year was like a serious year, super heavy. Lots of things happened personally, professionally. So I was like, I just want to be playful. So I was using the word wonder in a lot of my journaling and in a lot of my conversations. What I tend to do is I'll take a word or a theme or a phrase and I weave it into different conversations. And I find that it
Okay.
gives energy and it makes the words come to life, which then creates bigger conversations, which then creates, broader communities. So is the word still changed that now that we're on Thursday?
Oh, it's still changed.
You're like, hell yes. Oh yes. So we're going to talk about community and the circles that we are a part of, some of the circles we lead, some of the circles we're just a part of the fabric of them, and how important they are to both of us in our
Mhm.
personal and professional life. And this conversation comes up so much when I'm talking to other business people, because the communities, some call it networks, some call it circles, some call it circle of friends, whatever it is, they are the breath, they are the energy, they are the power, they are the advice. And so I want to break some of this down with you. And I want to start because you really demonstrated community on something that you reposted today on LinkedIn, which was someone in your community put an incredible post out talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. She didn't just like support. She was like full body celebration, hell yes, at the Golden Globes. And the
Yeah.
photograph that you posted just to me, and then what you said and how you supported it. And then all of the comments was like, this is somebody who really embodies community. You really live it. You really breathe it. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for
Oh,
that.
thank you. Thank you.
Because I feel like that it just speaks volumes to anybody listening or watching that knows Elisa. You're it. You are really it. So here's my first question. I want you to describe for me what community really means to you.
So when I think of community, I think of a circle of people. Doesn't matter who they are, what they look like. It's the human beings being together and supporting one another non-conditionally, right?
Mm,
It's like I'm supporting you in your endeavors and I'm not expecting anything back. I just want to see you win. I want to see you succeed because I believe that there is enough room for
mm.
all of us to be successful. And if you're successful and I'm cheering you on, that like makes me feel good, right? So that's my definition of community. And I'm so grateful that you're a part of my community and I feel that I'm a part of your community. So I'm going to I'm going to turn the tables here and ask you,
Mm.
what's your definition of community as you're helping, you know as you're navigating the conversations with the folks that you're having conversations with. How does community pop up for you?
I think of it more as a feeling than a
Mm,
thing or an entity. And I learned a long time ago that I can't do things on my own. I mean, I can, I shouldn't. And anytime I have a question, need to talk, need help, or want to offer help, and I'm genuinely a very, very curious person. So I take like a word like I'm in a really curious mood. I reconnected with somebody today who I haven't seen or talked to in a bunch of years, and she's doing great work as a CMO of a nonprofit. And all I could think about is how can I help her? Who can I connect her with? And then in today, it's part of some other relationship extensions that I'm building as I'm reconnecting with three powerhouse women from a company that I did a lot of coaching work with about 8 or 9 years ago. And they're all having wildly successful careers. And we're having dinner in New York in early February. And I just called it, I did hashtag epic gathering. And so that's a feeling like that brought me tremendous pride because two out of those three women I coached and they are crushing it in the world. So I take a feeling and then go to my circles and say, who do I need to talk with today? Who needs me? what help can I offer? But it all stems from like a word or phrase or a feeling. And then I never really even look at how big is my community? How big is my circle? I just say, who's there? What do I
Mm,
need to know more about? And how can I help? That's it.
yeah.
And I try not to be in my ego, which as an entrepreneur sometimes is hard, right? Because you have to build business. So I put her to the side often and say, I just want to talk. I just want to get to know them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
trust that whatever I need to know is going to be revealed.
Yeah. But I also think that when one of the things that you and I have in common that I think that anyone listening and watching should know, and I think we've mentioned it before, is that you and I share that kindred spirit of being a servant leader, right? And
Mm,
it's about service. So it's really interesting because my when I think about the community that I'm a part of or that I serve, I'm like, they're out there. Like I can see them or I don't see them,
mm.
because I want to be able to bring goodness to the world by elevating others. And that to me is like my sense of community, right? Because my sense of community is all about service.
I love that. Bringing goodness to the world. You do
Yeah.
that. You do that. Anybody watching or listening, just go to Elisa's LinkedIn. It is like a warm, cozy blanket. It's like a high five whenever you need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so cool. So, do you blend your personal and professional circles?
Well, you know what? For a long, long time, I kept them very, very
Mm,
separate. I felt that it was like church and state, and it's like I didn't want anybody knowing anything about me. And, because for me, it was all about the work, 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 work.
mm.
But in the last few years, no, in the last few years, it's just all like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
It's I think that for so many years I was so guarded and I lost out on so much because I was so guarded. And there was not a positive outcome of being guarded. And yes, I'm still a very private person. However, I'm not as guarded as I used to be. And it's actually much better for me because I think that when, people can sense when you're
Mm.
holding back or you're not being, yourself, or you're just not sharing a part of you, which I think that also comes with maturity, to be honest, too.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you. So, yeah, it's like presenting this veneer to the world,
Hmm. Yeah.
like a label. When did
Yeah.
you realize that you could reveal more? Because I know in my career, and I'm sure this is the same for you, no one teaches you how to build community or call it networks. No one teaches you the skills. You know you need to do it, but no one really knows how to do it, and often you don't think of the word community or network until you really need it. Like a lot of people, we both know a lot of people that are struggling at
Yeah.
work and they're like, I didn't spend the time building my network or my circle. So that's one of the things. So anybody that's in business school or potentially in academia, like this would be a really powerful course is to teach some of these skills at a very, very young age. But when did you realize this was something that was really important to you and that you could reveal more of yourself?
So it's real interesting. I think it's important that anyone, no matter where you are in the stage of your career, specifically those tuning in that are younger, that maybe college, undergrad, college, business school, start building your networks in the classroom because you never know where those folks are going to be and end up. And I'll just share when my very first internship as an undergrad, I remember the leader of the interns, sent around an Excel sheet, and he's like, put in your name, your phone number, your address, and we're going to share it with everyone. And it wasn't until then I was already, well into, I was a senior in college. And it was like, okay, like this guy is like creating this circle of like people, right? That we're all working together. And I wish someone would have told me that earlier. But I was still very, very, very guarded until fast forward a few years later. I guess when I got promoted from being a director and I became a vice president, when it stopped being about my career trajectory. And what I mean by that is you get to a certain level where you say, like, the tables flip, and it's like, okay, it's really not about me anymore. It's about the people that I'm managing. It's about my team. I think that at that time, Jeannie, was when it flipped for me. And everyone's like very different because now the folks, that I interact with are so open about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's also very different, right? Because of social media, it's people are
And
just very
COVID.
and
COVID
COVID,
definitely gave
yeah,
people the opportunity to feel more
yeah,
comfortable with those types
yeah.
of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, I've had some pretty hard bumps the last few years that I've been just very open about, which I never thought that I would be. But I think it's important because at the end of the day, Jeannie, we're all human. And sometimes life hits us and knocks us knocks us down. And you know what? Everyone's going to go through it one way or the other.
That is so true. Like, 'cause I think about
Mhm.
when I first started doing the Facebook Lives, I made it all about what I experienced in the business community, like to be in service. I was offering tips, strategies, discussion, anything and everything that I could think of that would help people. And then I started getting a lot of feedback where people were like, "Well, we want to hear more about your story." I was like, "Well, who cares what my story is? Why is that
Yeah,
interesting?"
yeah,
And I was really afraid to reveal very much because I'm I'm in a unique seat when I'm going into an organization and a company's contracted me to work with a senior leader. It's very high stakes. It's very confidential. I mean, I'm very much my same personality, but I am very conscious to the stakes. And so I'm very careful what I talk about myself, what I reveal. And so then to be in that situation where I was like being asked to offer more, I was like, I don't even know where to begin. And now I'm on the other side of it where I'm like, oh yeah, that's too much. I'm not going to say that. Okay, but I'll say this and I'll say that, and, talking about just different personal things. And I think a lot of it comes just with age and maturity too. Like you
hmm,
start caring less. You're like, whatever.
yeah,
Whatever. If that upsets you, okay. But I help somebody. And as long as you
yeah.
stay true to your value system and your belief, like it's being in service is so important to me, and making sure that when people are with me or they've listened to this or they've done something as it relates to something I've done, it was helpful and worthwhile. Like that is all I care about. And it's so freeing. It's so
Yeah,
freeing. It like takes the pressure off.
I know. And one of the things that you and I discussed, so for those tuning in, Jeannie started doing these great, like 1 minute videos. And I remember you did one outside Radio City Music Hall, you
Yes.
did one at the beach. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, that's what we need to see more of, we need to see like you
So
in
funny.
action, in like every day, because that's how you build trust, right? That's how you build again, going back to what the topic that at the top when we started chatting, it's about community. That's how you build community because you're being authentic, you're being raw, right, in the moment. And I think that's so important. I think it's
Mm.
just so important for us, for anyone out there. You know what? It's just being authentic to who you are is a magnet to getting other people to be part of your community, to be part of your network, and it's healthy for everyone. And at the end of the day, you know what, we're all human.
Right? Yeah.
We're all
Oh,
human.
so true. All right. I want to get into something around advice because, I
Mhm.
made mention of it. It's sometimes it's support, sometimes it's advice. And it's just such a key ingredient to my circles. I have many different circles for different things. And would you say that you seek advice more or offer advice more? Or maybe it's a blend.
I think for me personally, I think it's a blend, because I think that I have I have similar to you, I have different pockets is what I like to call them, right? Different pockets of people that I go to. I have my own, I have a very, very, very good friend who I've known for over 30 years, who I've, appointed her as, the chairman of the board of the Elisa Padilla brand. And I go to her when I need to make like life decisions that's going to affect me, my family. I speak to my partner and I speak to her. And but then I have people coming to me, asking me for career advice, asking me, from marketing advice, marketing expertise, or so I think it's a blend, but I try to take every conversation, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I try to take every interaction, whether I'm being asked for advice or I'm giving advice, and have it be a learning moment, right? So when I'm working with a team, I always frame up, this is either a coaching or a learning moment. And I think about it's like a two-way street, right? Because I think that's how not everyone sees the world the same, Jeanie. We all experience the world based on who we are. So I think that that's important to me. And then I also think that opens you up to being a little bit more empathetic and compassion when you're truly listening to someone who's asking you for help or advice.
I think it's very freeing too with advice seeking to say, I really have no idea. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not, and that's something that definitely hit me when I hit my like late 40s. I was like, you know what? I don't need to know that. And I can say it out loud. Like, I really don't know, but I know somebody who does.
Yeah.
And let me put them in front of you. And I'm okay with that. And so it's interesting. I think I strike a balance of both. I have some people very close to me personally that are my go-to, where I don't have to set it up and say, okay, I have some questions. Let me give you the context. And I just will like, I need a la 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 la. And sometimes there's tears, sometimes there's shouting. Obviously my husband's one of them too, but it's funny. It's just like a very good blend of advice seeking and advice giving.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind
I
of
think
cool.
I think so. I think so, right? I think it's always good to when people reach out and they're seeking advice based on your experience, because that means that they value what you're going to say, and I think that's important.
Well, let's break down advice even more because I'm so curious. When you think of your life and your career, is there any advice that you received that was so helpful? And
Yeah.
that replays in your mind over and over again. So tell me what
Yeah.
the advice was.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working for a media company at the time. So I'll keep this all very vague, to protect the innocent. But but I had the head of the department tell me, he's like, look, he's like, your input is very valuable to the business that we're doing here. And he said, you were hired for your intellectual property. He's like, and that is an asset to us. Those words have like stuck with me. And this, so many years later, it still like resonates with me. I mean, we all have it, right? We all go through that imposter syndrome, and that little girl inside of us, we talked about her before, but it's like, you can't do this, blah blah. And I always think back to those words that he said to me. He's like, we hired you based on your intellectual property.
Mm.
And that's advice, and those are words that I have repeated to people on my team, who are, feeling unsure, whatever. I was like, no, you're here because you were hired to do this job based on your intellectual property, and that's what you're here to contribute. So let's get this done. So I think that, I mean, and along the way, look, I have a mentor who was my first boss, who she's given me tons of, tons of advice over the years, but
Mm.
like that has always been at the forefront of my mind.
Mm.
Yeah.
All that's playing in my mind is like bad advice. Isn't that weird? My brain just went immediately to like, there's a couple of things that I remember early on when I had to do performance appraisals and I had some really underperformers and I was a new manager. And the guy who ran the function, he used to say to me when we were doing performance appraisals, you always think, you never tune into your heart. Business decisions are always made with your mind. They're never made with your heart. And I got his point, but I was like, that is such a load of BS. That is so not true and so not helpful.
Yeah.
The other thing was advice that I was told early on in my career. Again, same kind of time frame is, Jeannie, you're just too intense. You're just too intense. You gotta dial it back. It's really gonna get in your way. And I was like, again, I understood the context, but it's like, I'm enthusiastic and passionate, and I'm sorry if that's annoying. Like I
Yeah.
really get it. Instead of saying to me, you know what, we want to harness your energy, harness your passion. He just gave me a blanket statement. And then I was just listening to something yesterday at the other place where my mind went. I subscribe to this podcast. He's a professor at Columbia University Business School. And I hope I get this quote correct because it's a Viktor Frankl quote. And it talks all about like the meaning of life and why we're here. And what he was saying is that we have the means to live, but we've lost the relationship about the meaning of life. So we have means to live, but we've lost the connection to the meaning of living. And I thought that's so powerful. And that's
Hmm.
really what we're all in search of is the meaning, the purpose, the why we're
Yeah.
here, what are we here to do? And I really wish earlier on in my career someone would have helped me to see that. I eventually got there, but boy, it would have been so much more pleasurable and probably more fulfilling. Not easier, just more fulfilling if someone would have helped me to see that rather than heads down, all about execution, making smart decisions. Well, at least that's how I interpreted it. Um, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't that have been so neat if you had a mentor that talked to you about like the meaning of life, the sense of purpose? Why are you here? Like even esoteric discussions in your early 20s.
Yeah, but I think, you know what? I think that those conversations didn't happen because if you think about, as I'm listening to you, I'm going back in time to like all the people that I've worked with, with all the people that gave me feedback, with the person
Mm,
who said, "Hey, Elisa, you're too emotional. Hey, Elisa, you wear your emotions on your sleeve." And I think about that type of feedback and or the feedback of you have to be careful, you can't show you can't show too much emotion. It was just like, but that's really not the world that we live in, right? So I think that when you think about those people, they weren't in a place to have that conversation with you because they were just focused on getting ahead themselves, right? And they were potentially, it was just like, okay, I need Jeannie to produce, I need
mm,
Jeannie to do this X, Y, and Z because you know what, this is what's in it for me. And at the end of the day, I mean, when one of the things that I have learned, whether it's constructive criticism, whether it's good feedback, whatever it is that no one does anything because of you. Everyone does everything based on themselves. And
mm,
once you realize that, and once
mm.
you realize that behavior, you know what? It's just like it becomes clear on who you should, you know, who you should take notice of. And I don't know. This came up on my feed a couple of weeks ago on my Instagram feed. So I apologize. I don't remember who this quote belongs to, but it said, "Never take constructive criticism or never take criticism from someone you would never go to for advice.
Oh, I love that. Oh, say that again, really slow.
Yeah. So never take criticism from someone that you wouldn't go to advice for.
Oh, so true.
Right? So I think that, yes, I'm sorry, that was my long-winded way of saying yes. I wish someone would have had those conversations with me, when I was young in my career, because I think that, my career probably, the choices that I made might have been different. I don't know, but at the end of the day, looking back, I think that what I know now explains so much, because I know I'm much smarter and I'm much mature and I have a lot more experience. So now I feel like my duty is to pay that forward, right? And then like the next generation should, we should be having those conversations with them.
Where I want to end this conversation is I want to get to like almost like a tactical approach, because I'm fascinated at the idea of teaching, community building / networking, whatever you want to call it, teaching community building. Very first thing that I'm going to put out there, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. Maybe we could do like a speed round, like best practices.
Yeah.
My first best practice is I look at my life as Team Jeanie. Who's on Team Jeanie? What is it I'm trying to receive? What is it I'm trying to provide? And then I figure out who are those players on my team that I need to add more fuel and energy to, or I need to learn from. And that mindset is where I always begin. Okay, you go.
Yeah, it's not only creating your team, so I'll build on that, but it's like who on your team is going to be straightforward and honest with you, and who on your team is going to believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. Jeanie,
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. So on your team, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need subject matter experts, you need contrarians.
Mhm.
Those people that are like, nah, I don't see it that way. Even though they piss you off, you're like, yes, you're right. All right. You need
Mm.
contrarians. You need people that will elevate your brand. You need people that you can learn from. So who are the teachers in
Yeah.
your nation? That's just the first things that I'm thinking about. The other thing that I think about as it relates to community building is I choose people to be on my team, Team Jeanie, that I want to spend time with. I don't look at it through the lens as a transaction. So who
Mhm.
are those people I want to spend time with? All right, Elisa.
Yeah, I think of, the people that are part of Team Elisa, if you will. I look for people that are going to give it to me straight, who are going to, again, I know that I said that before, but I think it's so important, because sometimes we get so lost in, we believe this and we believe this. And it's like, no. You need to put that mirror up in your face, girlfriend, and call yourself out and be accountable to yourself. So I think the coach that not only is going to push you to get things done, but the coach who's also going to call you out and say, listen,
Yeah.
you're wrong. You know what, you're wrong. It's like, you should have passed the ball. Don't be a ball hog. Like those are the folks that I look for, who are part of my circle, that are, I think that's critical.
Mm. I also would love to hear. So like you, I network a lot. I meet a lot of different people new that are not on Team Jeanie yet. And I'm trying to decide if I want them on my team yet. And earlier in my career, it was very awkward for me to do that. It was like, oh, it's that small talk stuff. Like, I don't know. Now I have a different mindset, because now I take all the pressure off to say it's not a performance. I'm not here to impress. I'm here to get to know you. So I play with the word curiosity when I'm starting to just to get to know someone, whether it's in person, whether it's hey, I know so and so, you two need to know each other. That's what I usually do, is I come armed with questions, not spewing resume details? What's your
Mhm.
approach with new contacts?
Same way, same way.
Okay.
Do the research, ask questions that are human questions like, hey, like, what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite color? Like, what do you do on your
Mm,
spare time? Not about what's your position, how long did it take you to get there? Because I think those conversations will, that those things will eventually pop up in the conversation. But I think that once you start asking the questions about truly wanting to know the person, I think that I have found that approach has been much more successful for me, and it actually puts me at ease, right? Because there's no to your point, it's not transactional. It's like
yes.
I don't want to have a conversation with you just like, what are we going to get out of each other? Like, let's have a conversation to see, like, if we can be friends, if we could go out to lunch. So that's the way that I approach it for
I
sure.
love that you said transactional because that is the biggest. Ugh. As soon as
Mhm.
I start to hear a lot of very directed, like pushy language, how long you've been doing this, what's I've been asked like income levels on various years, what your long term strategy is, and like I just met you 10 minutes ago. Like pump the
Yeah,
brakes.
yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to share that with you. But the other
Right.
thing that I think is important, as you're growing a network or looking to build a network, it has to be done on a regular and consistent basis. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
one-off. It is a part of my business ethos. How I interact with people and how often and how I'm feeding my nation and my team at all times. It has never stopped. So I've been in business. I'm going on my 18th year starting next month. I do not stop. It is not something I say, "Oh my goodness, I have only talked to 20 new people this month." That's like, well, I don't even think of it that way. It is a
Right.
nonstop incoming level of conversation where who do I want to know more about? Who can I help? I'm genuinely looking to build my community and build my team up. I'll talk to people that are out of work. I'll talk to people that need connection in a new company if they've been introduced to me. I'll talk to people all the time that want to enter the world of coaching and it's very daunting all the time. I do not stop because I feel like I always learn something, even though it might feel as though I'm providing something, I always receive something from those conversations. And again, because I want to build my team, I want to add more breadth and power and relationships onto Team Jeanie. What about you?
Yeah. I love it. I have to tell you, just listening to you, it's just like, you know what? You just have like this spectacular energy
Oh,
about
thank you.
just like your commitment to like the people that are part of Team Genie. And I'm just glad to be, just a tiny part of that team. I'm just so grateful. So I just wanted to say thank you to you,
Well,
Jeannie, for that.
thank you. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
saying yes to being on Team Jeanie. As part of Team Jeanie, you said yes to this collaboration, which, by the way, came out of someone else making an introduction
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
between you and I,
absolutely.
which is where we started when we first started doing this series of conversations. We
Yeah,
talked about that. And that was we both took a chance and started to say more than, the quote unquote professional script. Like, what else can we talk about? How can we
yeah,
play with the edges a bit? And here we are
yeah.
collaborating on the Warriors at Work platform to offer up interesting and insightful conversation to other business people. So, with that, Elisa, I am so grateful you're on my team. You play a pivotal role as coach, as advisor, as cheerleader, as contrarian, as marketing branding executive guru that's always like, what about this? What about that? So I'm so grateful to you.
Yeah, same here. Ditto, right back at you. And I'm telling you, and we're gonna say it here, it's a new year.
Uh-oh.
And my word for Genie is Netflix.
Netflix. Uh-oh. All
That's
right.
how we're gonna end it off.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to keep on doing something. We don't know exactly what, but we're going to keep it going.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeanie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeaniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.